I have the script for UFC 318. That is correct. Me and the other script writers at the UFC headquarters put our heads together and cooked up the most diabolical script we could possibly make for UFC 318, and I'm gonna leak it to you in this video. Now, although there is a script, there is always the chance that there's deviations from this script. We could have a bad outcome, and if there's shenanigans that happen in the fight, that could be another outcome as well. So we're gonna go over the scripted outcome, the potential bad outcome, and the outcome that involves the most shenanigans. So for this fight, we got Carli, Judice, and Nicolle Caliari. The script is calling for Carli Judice to win by decision. She is the superior striker, and us at the UFC headquarters would like to see a superior striker move their way up the rankings rather than a boring grappler like Nicolle. The bad outcome, with that being said, is if Nicolle wins, but she wins by decision, because if she wins by decision, that more than likely means that she just laid on top of Carli for 3 rounds, and no one wants to see that. And the shenanigan outcome is if Nicolle Caliari goes out there and submits Carli Judice. We would actually like this a little bit here at UFC HQ, considering she's also a prospect of her own right, and if she finds a finish against a decent prospect in Carli Judice, that would be interesting to see. Brunno Ferreira against Jackson McVey. The script is calling for a Brunno Ferreira KO. He's minus 700. He's going up against a guy making his UFC debut. He should find the KO, considering he's very close to the top 15 at middleweight. The bad outcome is if Brunno Ferreira wins, but he doesn't get the finish. He should be getting the finish against a guy who's never fought in the UFC before. And with that being said, the shenanigan outcome is if Jackson McVey somehow pulls this out of the fire, goes completely off script, and submits Brunno Ferreira. We would not be expecting that at UFC HQ. Ryan Spann and Lukasz Brzeski square off next, and the script is obviously calling for a Ryan Spann KO because, number one, heavyweight needs new blood in the division. Number two, Ryan Spann is going to retire if he loses this fight. And number three, Ryan Spann at heavyweight sounds like an interesting idea. The bad outcome is if Ryan Spann just straight up does not win inside the distance. If he goes to decision with Lukasz Brzeski, who's one of the chinniest guys on the roster. And the worst thing possible, the shenanigan outcome, is if Lukasz Brzeski survives the early onslaught from Ryan Spann and outvolumes him to win a decision. No one would want to see that, considering Lukasz Brzeski is 1-5 in the UFC and cannot possibly move up in the rankings because he is quite not good. Jimmy Crute and Marcin Prachnio. This one's a pretty easy script for us to write. Jimmy Crute to win by sub. You just got to take Marcin, the karate merchant, down, and once you get him down, it should be easy pickings. Marcin Prachnio has negative BJJ IQ. He got submitted by Modestas Bukauskas, which was completely off script, but now that we went off script that much in his last fight, we kind of have to bring it back, and we have a new script, which is calling for a Jimmy Crute sub. The bad outcome is if Marcin Prachnio wins by decision. That just means that he points fighted at distance for 15 minutes, and no one at UFC headquarters or in the script writer's room wants to see that. And the shenanigan outcome is if Jimmy Crute goes to his 3rd draw in 6 fights. That would actually be pretty funny. I feel like at this point, going to a draw in Jimmy Crute fights is almost the scripted outcome because it's happening so often. Jimmy Crute is going into the multiverse for every single fight where he goes to a draw, and it would be funny to see it happen again. Adam Fugitt squares off with Islam Dulatov, and I'm not going to bore you. This is an obvious script. Islam Dulatov to win by KO. He is the up-and-coming prospect, and us over at the UFC headquarters, we love when a prospect is fighting an old head. We want to put the prospect over, and we want to get the old head off the roster. The bad outcome is if Islam Dulatov were to just win, but he doesn't get the finish. That would look like a very ugly fight because Islam Dulatov often goes out there and tries to get the finish in the first 2 minutes. So if he wins by decision, that probably means he gassed out badly and could not find the finish. And the worst possible thing is if Adam Fugitt were to win by decision, because Islam Dulatov is a good prospect. We don't really know his true potential yet, and if he were to get fraud stomped immediately in his first UFC bout against a guy that's one fight away from being cut, that would be a horrific look. Ateba, Gautier, and Robert Valentin square off next, and this is a pretty easy script. Ateba by KO. The bad outcome is if Robert Valentin wins by sub, because Ateba hasn't truly been tested on the ground yet, and the worst possible thing we can see in this one is if it goes the distance somehow. If Ateba doesn't find the finish himself, or if Robert Valentin doesn't pull out a meme submission, we're going to see quite a weird 15 minutes of two guys staring at each other, and we do not want to see that at UFC headquarters. We would much rather see the middleweight Ateba Gautier, Francis Ngannou-like prospect move his way up the rankings, rather than a Walmart Jiri who hasn't won in the UFC yet. Francisco Prado and Nikolay Veretennikov take place next, and honestly, I have Veretennikov picked, so I was trying to implore the script writers, hey, please make the script call for Nikolay to win, but that is unfortunately not the case. Francisco Prado to win inside the distance is the script here. He is the 23-year-old prospect, and the fact that he's 12 years younger than Nikolay, I was overridden in the script room. They do not like it when an old head wins over a young head. So Prado to win by KO is what we ended up coming to the conclusion as the script. The bad outcome, which is the good outcome for me, is if Nikolay were to win by decision, which is what he's going to most likely win by, considering he's going to have the height and reach advantages, and he can just jab his way to a victory. But the worst possible thing is, I mean, who cares? Does this matchup have any prospects going forward? I mean, even if Prado were to win, he's probably going to look mid, and if Veretennikov were to win, who actually cares? Marvin Vettori and Brendan Allen take place next, and the script is obviously calling for a Brendan Allen decision here. The bad outcome would be if Marvin Vettori won by decision. It wouldn't be the worst, but it would be bad because Marvin Vettori has lost against most of the top 10 at the current middleweight rankings. Brendan Allen at least has lost to the guys outside the rankings, and he's given the guys in the top 5 a run for their money. So at UFC HQ, we would like to see it if Brendan Allen got the W here. And the interesting shenanigan outcome is if this ends inside the distance. Marvin Vettori KO, which I find unlikely. He can't finish a sandwich. And a Brendan Allen sub, which I also find unlikely, considering Marvin Vettori is one of the most durable guys on the roster. Phillips and Vinicius Oliveira takes place next. And us at the UFC headquarters, when we were making the script for this one, it was kind of hard because usually it's fairly simple. You choose the prospect over the old head to win, or sometimes you can choose the old head in certain scenarios based on their legacy. But this is an interesting spot because it's two prospects. So there really is no bad scenario. I mean, Vinicius can win by decision and it would be fine. He would be undefeated in the UFC. And Phillips can win by decision and it will be fine because he would have a career turnaround after his Rob Font loss. The only bad thing that could possibly take place in this matchup is if Vinicius Oliveira loses by how he's lost all 3 of his fights, which is by KO. If Phillips were to go out there and completely shut down Vinicius and knock him out, that would remove Vinicius from the prospect pool. A guy that's beaten a Nurmagomedov, a guy that's beaten Ricky Simon. We would not want to see that. We want to just see 2 guys go out there and have a good fight, and it goes to a pretty close decision. Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber takes place next, and the script is obviously calling for Daniel Zellhuber to win by KO or decision. He can knock out Michael Johnson. He can win a points fight against Michael Johnson. The bad outcome is if Michael Johnson just wins. That would be horrific. He's in his 40s, and Daniel Zellhuber is 26. Us at the UFC headquarters would much rather see the younger guy get put over. And the shenanigan outcome is if they completely deviate off script, is if Michael Johnson wins inside the distance. I find this highly unlikely. I wouldn't be completely surprised, though, because Michael Johnson, at the end of the day, is a dog, and he has stretches where he looks like he doesn't deserve to be in the UFC, but he also has stretches where he looks like the god of the UFC. So I guess we'll find out Saturday what's going to happen. Dan Ige and Patricio Pitbull is on next, and the script is calling for a Dan Ige KO. That is his most likely win condition in every fight he's ever fought in the UFC. Dan Ige by KO. The bad outcome is if we somehow let the Bellator guy get a finish on Dan Ige by his most likely finish, which is by sub. And the shenanigan outcome is if Patricio Pitbull were to win a decision. The only way he wins a decision is if he just outpoints Dan Ige or gets control time against the fence against Dan Ige. Both things that would be very boring to watch, and it's opening up the main card alongside Zellhuber. So we want to see the Bellator guy lose. That is simply what the script is calling for, and any other outcome would be considered a deviation. Kevin Holland and D-Rod is next, and the script is calling for a Kevin Holland finish. He is 5 years younger than D-Rod. He's going to have more than 5 inches of reach. He's going to have the height advantage. He has the power advantage. He has quite possibly every advantage you can ask for. This is welterweight Kevin Holland we're talking about, the guy that actually takes things seriously. The bad outcome is if Kevin Holland turns this into a sparring match and wins by decision. No one would want to see that. And honestly, the shenanigan outcome is if Kevin Holland turns it into a sparring match and actually loses to Daniel Rodriguez by decision. We don't want to see Daniel Rodriguez beat on potential top 15 guys. You know, I'll take Daniel Rodriguez all day against another old head, but if you're going to put him up against someone that could potentially fight in the top 10, top 5 very soon, we would not want to see that at UFC headquarters. Paulo Costa and Roman Kopylov take the dance in the next fight, and the script is calling for Roman Kopylov to win by decision. It would be way more beneficial for us at the UFC headquarters to see the prospect win over the guy that's been hogging the rankings for a long time. But if you look into it, they're actually both 34 years old. So, I mean, the script might be a little off here. The bad outcome is if Paulo Costa wins by decision, but I actually think the scripted outcome should be Paulo Costa to win by decision. They're both 34 years old. It's not like Roman is the up-and-coming prospect. He's had, I believe, more fights in the UFC than Paulo Costa himself. And the shenanigan outcome is if either guy finds a finish. If Roman Kopylov KOs Costa, that would be cinematic. It would be completely off script. And if Paulo Costa finds a finish against Roman Kopylov, that would also be cinematic, and it would also be completely off script. In the main event, the BMF belt, Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. And I went back and forth with the script writers on this one that, you know, Dustin Poirier should win. That is how we should book this. And then I had people saying, well, Max Holloway, if he were to win this, he could make a run at lightweight and yada, yada, yada. I'm not buying any of it. I actually got my hands on the script. I changed it at the last second. I whited out what they put and put over it that Dustin Poirier is going to win his retirement fight by any means necessary. Because if Dustin Poirier were to win, there is a scenario where he can fight for the lightweight belt again by calling out Ilia Topuria. I mean, why not at that point? Ilia is fresh blood in the division, someone that Dustin has never fought before. So if he has the chance to win this and then fight for the belt one last time, I don't see a scenario he wouldn't do that. The bad outcome is if Max Holloway wins. I got a lot of pushback for this, saying that Max Holloway winning is the script, but if Max Holloway wins, who cares? All right, he already got knocked out by Ilia, so he's got no prospects there. He can fight Charles Oliveira if he wins or loses this fight. I see a lot of people saying that's the next fight to make. He can fight him with a win or with a loss. No one would bat an eye. So Max Holloway winning, we don't really want to see that. And the shenanigan outcome is if this somehow ends by sub, because their first fight ended with Dustin subbing Max. And in the second fight, Max had a really deep Darce choke at the end of round 3, I believe, almost submitted Dustin, and we know Dustin is a gilly goose, and he's going to pull gilly if Max decides to shoot a takedown. So if this ends by sub, it would probably be the most apropos, most poetic way for Dustin Poirier's career to end. Now, you guys let me know in the comments what you think is the script for UFC 318. Make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, and have a great rest of your day, you savage.